Welcome, pre-algebra, to lesson 4.5, factorization by grouping terms, beginning on page 109 to 111. Grouping terms is another way to factorize, and we may ask, why do we need to know how to do that? Well, under our vocabulary lesson, we're going to find out why we need to know how to do this type of factorizing. So, for example, sometimes all the terms collectively within an algebraic expression may not have a common factor. So what do? And this is where it comes into play. You factorize by grouping, which simply means divide the terms into groups such that the terms in each group have a common factor, then factorize each group separately, and then you combine them at the end. So here we go. Try it 14. At the bottom of page 110, letter A, 6ax plus 10ay plus 3bx plus 5by. Last lesson, we had to have a common factor to all of these. Well, with two evens and two odd primes, I'm not going to have a common factor with those terms, and I do not have the same letter repeating 4 times all the way through. I have two a's, I have two b's, I have two x's and two y's, but I don't have 4 of anything. This is a situation where we are going to factorize by grouping terms. So the first thing we do, first asterisk, is you arrange the terms into two groups using parentheses. So basically, I just take that first raw expression and I throw some parentheses around. I throw it around the first two and the last two. I do that because within the first two I have even numbers. They're both divisible at least by 2, and I have a's that are common to both. Here, while I don't have a common whole number because they're both prime, I do have a common letter b. So I'm good to go. In between the two, I keep that positive sign as I bring it down. So looking at the first group, out of 6ax and 10ay, I'm looking at the 6a and the 10a. I can take a 2a out of each of those. So I am left with, after doing so, 2a times 3x plus 5y, because 2a times 3x is a positive 6ax, and 2a times positive 5y is a positive 10ay. I always double check, make sure I'm getting my positives and negatives correct. Since this is all positive to begin with, don't really have to be too concerned right now. I just am going to have all positives in my answers, but in the next problem I'm going to have negatives, so I need to understand the principle. Here, I'm going to continue factoring. I'm going to factor out the b because that's common to both. If I do that, I am left with b times 3x plus 5y. And if I multiply that positive b by each of these, I end up with the positives that I have above. Now, the last thing I do is factor out the common factor of each group. Well, the common factor to this and this is the 3x plus 5y. It repeats. I'm left with 2a positive b, that's my first group, times the 3x plus 5y, and that is my answer. And there you have it, factoring by grouping terms. Let's go on to a little more complicated problem in letter B. It's a little more complicated because of the negative signs. So in B, we have 18az minus 30cz minus 15a plus 25z. Okay, I throw my parentheses around the terms. Thankfully, they all line up. So even numbers in z's. And here I have multiples of 5, but no common letters. That's okay, I have multiples of 5. So looking at the 18 and the 30, the highest common multiple, the highest factor that I can get is 6 and a z. So 6z out of a positive 18az leaves me with a 3a. If I multiply it together, I get right back to it. Taking a 6z out of a negative 30cz leaves me with a negative 5c. Remember, positive times a negative gives me that negative value up there. I need to always honor my positives and negatives. Here, I'm going to bring down that negative sign, factor out my 5, which is the only thing I can do. So I have a negative 5 times 3a leaves me with this negative 15a. If I take out a negative 5 from here, I'm left with a negative 5c because two negatives make that positive. So keep that in mind while working. At this point, I'm going to combine the first group and the second group. So my first group is 6c times 3a minus 5c. My second group is negative 5 times 3a minus 5c. Notice I have a common factoring group, 3a minus 5c. Okay, I have that. And then, of course, I have the outside numbers that come together for the first part of the factorization. So I have 6z minus 5 times 3a minus 5c. And therefore, that's my answer. Going on to try it 15. Sometimes when I do all of this, I end up with something wonky, and that happens in 15. So I'll show you what to do. So again, we have 7ax minus 21x plus 12 minus 4a. I can take 7 out of each of those and an x, so these two group together and then the last two group together. So like I said, 7 is common to both 7 and 21, so I take a 7 and an x out of each of those. If I take a 7 and an x out of the first one, I'm left with simply a. If I take a 7 and an x out of the second one, that means out of the negative 21, I have a negative 3 left. No x's, no more letters. Here, I look at my 12 and 4. All I can take out is a 4. So again, positive, positive, positive. I'm taking out a 4. So 12 divided by positive 4 is 3. And negative 4 divided by positive 4 is a negative a. Okay. Of course, the a stays because I wasn't taking any letters out. So now I start grouping. So I have 7x times a minus 3 plus 4 times 3 minus a. Okay, I need common factors. This is awfully close, but I have a positive 3, negative a, and I have just the reverse here. So what I have to do is reverse this entire group, including the positive 4. And in order to do that, I just multiply it all by negative 1. We've learned that does not inherently change the group. It just makes the signs compatible. Therefore, I just flip my signs. Positive 4, negative 4. And then I flip these two around to a minus 3. So negative a becomes a, positive 3 becomes negative 3. And now I have a common factor grouping. So I have 7x minus 4 times a minus 3. And that is my answer. So a little bit more to think about with grouping. Remember all of the different things that you can do, all the laws that we have learned about positives and negatives and changing signs as we did here to make them compatible. So keep that in mind as you do today's lesson on page 111, numbers 1, 2, and 3. If you have any questions, please ask. Remember, you can always rewind the video and watch it again. Thank you, and do good math.